Imagine a world where your right to gather, pray, and celebrate the most holy day of the year is revoked simply because a distant conflict has escalated. That isn't just bad policy, it is the definition of totalitarianism. And we need to talk about what happens when governments stop acting as protectors and start acting as enforcers of fear. This isn't about minor logistical adjustments, this is about the soul of our civilization being crushed beneath the weight of unchecked militaristic ambition. Let's look at the raw data here. We see locations surrounded by total chaos, places where death is happening everywhere, and suddenly, officials declare them safe enough for worshippers. Or worse, they close them down entirely based on vague security theater. It makes zero sense logically, so why does it make perfect sense politically? Because the priority has shifted from protecting lives to controlling territory. When a secular government closes a church, especially one owned by private citizens, they aren't enforcing law, they are exerting brute force. They are replacing justice with muscle. If you can shut down a place of worship because you don't want its congregation speaking out, then the rule of law has already collapsed. You've entered a regime where survival depends on obedience, not morality. And let's address the elephant in the room, the targeting of civilian infrastructure. There are reports of attacks on water purification systems and national energy grids. Ask yourself honestly, does hitting a water plant constitute a just cause? Absolutely not. Striking essential services doesn't kill soldiers, it kills innocents. It targets the very foundation of life itself. When leaders decide that blowing up a city's ability to drink clean water is a valid strategy, they cross a line that cannot be uncrossed. They are declaring that the preservation of innocent life is optional. This brings us to the brutal reality of modern warfare versus true ethics. Many try to justify these massacres by pointing to old stories, citing battles from centuries ago. But listen closely, those ancient texts describe a different covenant. Today, the standard for belief shouldn't be the violent wars of the ancients, but the radical love and non-retaliation taught by Jesus himself. Real Christianity rejects the cycle of revenge. It says, "I will suffer so you may live." Yet we watch nations use religious rhetoric to sanitize genocide, twisting scripture to give permission for slaughter. That is not faith, that is hypocrisy dressed in robes. It turns the greatest teacher of peace into a weapon of oppression. Why do we allow this narrative to persist? Because there is a deliberate effort to blind us. Have you noticed how hard it is to find clear information anymore? How quickly inconvenient truths get buried under layers of spin? It feels less like censorship and more like a supernatural fog settling over our minds. Leaders operate with an arrogance that borders on madness. They believe their own manufactured reality is better than the painful truth staring them in the face. By silencing anyone who dares point out the bloodshed, they create a feedback loop of denial. They convince themselves that if they ignore the screams loud enough, the screams won't exist. But here is the danger zone: silence equals complicity. Every moment you stay quiet while watching children die in your name, every time you scroll past a graphic image hoping it goes away, you become part of the machinery of destruction. You are empowering dark forces by refusing to wake up. These forces thrive on our apathy. They feed off our refusal to admit that something is terribly wrong. When we refuse to judge the horrific acts committed in our names, we lose our moral compass. We drift into a nightmare where force rules supreme, and the weak are sacrificed on the altar of geopolitical gain. So, what breaks this trance? What pulls us back from the edge? It starts with admitting our own brokenness. Acknowledging that we are capable of great evil and that our societies are rife with falsehoods is the first step toward freedom. Denial keeps us bound, truth sets us free. Even now, amid all this terror, there is a strange, defiant light shining through. People are finding each other. Millions are coming together online to say, "We saw it. We know it happened." History teaches us that suppressing the truth rarely works forever. Just as early Christians grew stronger under persecution, honest messengers tend to resonate deeper when the noise gets louder. Their voice cuts through the static because it carries the weight of undeniable reality. There is still hope, though it looks nothing like what politicians promise. Hope comes from individuals waking up and realizing that their small act of courage matters. Whether it's praying for peace, sharing verified news, or simply refusing to lie about what you see, it adds up. Divine intervention isn't always dramatic lightning strikes, sometimes it's the quiet decision to stand firm when everything else falls apart. Look at the movements of grace appearing even in the darkest corners of the globe. People are turning to one another, asking questions, demanding answers. The structure of corruption is cracking because the pressure of truth is too heavy to hold back indefinitely. To the young ones feeling overwhelmed, hearing whispers of giving up, hold on. The vision of a cruel world is real, yes, but it is not final. Evil relies on your participation. Stop feeding the beast with your attention and your silence. Stand tall. Be willing to pay whatever price it takes to tell the truth. Remember that temporary comfort bought at the expense of conscience is worthless. True strength is knowing that even if the whole world tries to drown you in lies, the light inside you burns brighter. Don't let the fear of tomorrow rob you of your duty today. Reject the idea that you're powerless. Refuse to sign the blank check of indifference handed to you by arrogant leaders. Demand accountability. Expose the lies. Protect the vulnerable. Because in the end, the measure of a nation or a person isn't how many enemies they defeat, but how well they treat the innocent. Let's move forward with eyes wide open, guided by virtue, anchored in truth, and unafraid to call things exactly as they are. The battle for our souls begins with the simple choice to see clearly. Choose wisely. Check out Profile for podcast summaries.